This industry is on a comeback. They call it a renaissance. I call it a fraud. And the fraud is brought by the nuclear Pied Piper, who's singing the same songs that were sung before that attempted to mislead people, and we lived through that misleading time.
So Jan, what led you to make the movie, and what do you hope the audience will take away from it?
Well, I want to thank you all for coming. Apparently this is the first anti-nuclear event in Eugene in anyone's memories. Most of my career has been as a professor at Portland State, and my documentary film projects grew out of my field research. That all of my field work has been informed by social justice issues. My documentary film projects grew out of field work and using the medium of a documentary to bring issues of public concern and controversy into a form, venues like this, where people can engage around particular issues that are anxiety-provoking or controversial. So as a psychologist, I've been very interested in how public anxieties are managed around a social issue. And certainly with nuclear power and the attempts to revive nuclear power, which Kathy Sampson-Cruz sensitized me to out of our earlier project film we worked on together. She said, you know, this issue of nuclear power has been kind of under the radar of the environmental movement, and it hasn't mobilized people in the way it should. So I began looking at it and became interested in how the propaganda around nuclear power has a long history, and so this film in a way is about the history of propaganda around nuclear power that people have been afraid of since the beginning, and for good reasons. And how this industry, including this revival, the so-called renaissance of nuclear power, has distanced itself from, kind of cast the older generation of nuclear activists as kind of still kind of having a kind of PTSD reaction, kind of hung over with nuclear power, and that young people are not afraid of this, and they've really created kind of youthful image, even kind of a domesticated feminine image of it. And so I really began to follow over a period of year and a half how this industry was promoting itself against, with tremendous support behind it. And so I felt like there was really a need for a documentary that kind of addressed that, encouraged by my colleagues here.
Thank you, that was great. Next, I'd like to introduce Kathy Sampson-Cruz, who was also in the movie. She is from the Kalula-Pum. Oh, sorry, I tried to get a pronunciation of this, but I blew it. Walula-Pum Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation. She's a retired social worker and associate producer. She was featured in the film. And Kathy is also an associate, I already said that, and she was also an associate producer and featured in The Necessity, Climate Justice, and The Thin Green Line. So Kathy, I have a question for you. You're featured in the film, as I've said, and as well, and the film came out of a previous one that you had with Jan. Why do you think this is an important continuation of the previous work on climate justice? And also you say in the film that we stand on a thin green line, and what do you mean by that metaphor?
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me okay, folks? Who said no? Well, first of all, thank you, Eugene. Thank you on Indigenous Peoples Day. I was just over at Many Nations Longhouse and saw all the young people there celebrating and standing up for goodness and getting a good education. Hopefully the young tribal leaders of our future. And took a couple seconds to say, hey, there's a film. We need to talk about this. So thank you for the ancestors for this land, the Kalapuya, the Malala, those that on their own trail of tears to the Siletz tribe that is now restored and the Grand Ronde tribes that are now restored. My tribe is down far, far, far from here, 280 miles at the base of the Blue Mountains. Our ceded land, as you saw on some of those very well done maps, during the treaty days was actually, our homelands are right with the Yakima, as Atwe Jim, the elder, who is now gone, explained. My father, Carl Sampson, Pio Pio Mox Mox, our chief Yellowbird, who is now gone as well, sat on that Hanford tribal board with him. And as we look at the history and what was told within our families and with our tribal meetings, it's always been, excuse my French, just a pain in the ass to deal with the government on all of these issues. So as I left the res and raised a family and went to school and met this dear man, Lloyd, down at a Oregon Peace Works event, he offered to come out to the reservation and talk with our leaders. And I think, Lloyd, that was so many moons ago. my son, who is now 40, I think Lloyd got a picture of him when he was like 3, holding a balloon from a march. So yeah, we've been around a while, as most of you can tell with our gray hairs full of wisdom. Long story short, we all need to wake up. And we're all graying, and we need to remember it's our children's children that are so affected by this. 2050, you know, I hope to still be around, but the legacy, the terrible legacy of what we see is, I mean, it's just sometimes unspeakable, but we have to speak it. And maybe it's not as popular and cool and faddish as it was back in the 70s, but we have to get out there and say something. And when I'd go to some of the meetings after I retired, you know, big money was put into coal campaigns. That's just what it was. Bloomberg put a lot of big money, Sierra Club, to try to stop coal and oil and fracking, and that was, a lot of good things were happening. I'm not here to debate that. But during the New York Climate March, is when I saw the big flyer from some young people that said Kong. Has anybody seen that flyer? Not just King Kong. King Kong was on the flyer, but Kong was K for coal, O for oil, N for nuclear, and G for gas. And it brought me back home to say, you know, that damn Hanford's still there. You know, good people are trying to work on it and clean it up and stop it. But then SM&R started coming. And I'm going to let Lloyd talk about that and the fight that we did to try to stop, well, successfully stop the state of Oregon from going insane again. But they're back. They will be back. Will those Republicans not get seated again? Will the state law uphold that they don't really need to be there if they're just going to walk out? I'm certainly hoping out in Eastern Oregon that'll happen. Long story short, it's backed by a lot of big money, a lot of misinformation, and our young people are very, very busy living their lives, but we need to kind of shake them up. We need to kind of sit them down at the table and say, hey, you really need to pay attention to this. We love you. We're not going to be around here when this might all melt down, but you all need to come to the table. I thought of, my husband and I have 8 children. We just had our 15th grandchildren. And, I look at that little boy, his name's Ocean Kukomiak, and his big sister Juniper. And I'm hoping the day when he'll walk in that march with me, just as his big sister did, and just as his mother did. And there's more than marching, there's more than a petition to sign, and sometimes it's putting our body on the line. And that's what I saw in the courage that Lloyd and all of those young people did back at Trojan. So y'all need to do what you can. And if it means direct action when the call comes, that's what we need to do. Ai katsiaio.
All right, now I'd like to introduce Lloyd Marbett. He's the executive director of the Oregon Conservancy Foundation and is a longtime anti-nuclear activist and was featured in Atomic Bamboozle, as you saw. Lloyd, you have also been featured in the film, and you've been doing activist work for decades. What do you hope people will learn from this documentary?
First of all, it's an honor to be here with all of you. I've seen this film now probably 6 or 7 times maybe. I think Jan has done a wonderful job of compiling a history that is important for us to know. And it's also very special. It's also very special to be here this evening with you. Not just because this is a fundraiser, but it's more because a lot of you in this audience helped make what that film is all about. I mean, I recognize faces here this evening, people I haven't seen in a long time, and I know what we all went through in order to bring about the results that we brought with the Trojan nuclear plant and the concerns that have been raised about Hanford. And it really is very important that we now look to the future, because this industry is on a comeback. They call it a renaissance. I call it a fraud. And the fraud is brought by the nuclear Pied Piper, who's singing the same songs that were sung before that attempted to mislead people, and we lived through that misleading time, especially in the way that the Trojan plant went down. A lot of the film does not address all of that, but the fact of the matter is there was a lot of information that was conveyed to us that was not true. And in fact, it's interesting, when the Trojan plant was first built, the very first thing that they built was the information center. It operated before Trojan operated. And it brought out school children, and they brought out senior citizen groups, and they ran through with these hostess-like figures and films and fancy information about all the wonderful things that were supposed to happen, the waste that was supposed to go away, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the waste is still there. 34 cats sit on the Trojan site waiting for the nuclear garbage man to come and take them away, and they haven't been taken away. So if anything it comes out of this film, I hope it's the fact that we need to organize, and we need to organize once again to stop this from happening again. And that's why it's important, I hope, for you to sign up on our information sheets outside. I think it's over here underneath my hat, but they're on the table out there, so that once they come back again to the Oregon legislature, and I don't know whether you know this, in the last 10 years, every full legislative session, New Scale and their right-wing legislators have sponsored legislation to try and do away with the 1980 ballot measure that we passed into law that says before you can have a nuclear plant in Oregon, you have to have a federally licensed repository, and you, all of us in this state, have a right to vote on whether or not this plant gets built. They want to take that away. And the only way that we're going to prevent that from being taken away is if all of us stand up and say, no. We want to keep the only accountability that in this nation, there's not very many states that have done this, that says that before you can do something like this, you have to demonstrate that in fact you really do have these so-called solutions that you have promised us. So please, please carry this forward. We can't continue to go down this road. We've got to change how we have our relationship with this planet. And it's not just a technological fix. It's